to you. Today is Friday, the 3rd of April, 2026. My name is Francisco Gafni, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. Now, this week I have taken you through an advisory board operating system in the order of, I guess, serious board executive teams and founders should think. So Monday we talk about scale, Tuesday was predictability, Wednesday was about systems and resilience, and Thursday yesterday was about age. You're right, your transformation, your innovation, your reinvention in the business, besides uncertainties, unpredictability, etc., right? So let me pull the model here so we have it in front of us, because I'm going to talk about the model today, the whole operating system. And there's one thing to think about this. The reason why I designed this model is because boards, executive teams, and founders, they've always find themselves in this problem. It's a recurrent problem, by the way, which is they see the businesses and as a tunnel, as a funnel, right? So it's something that is linear, that is happening from one fire to the next one. And then they look back and say, oh, what happened there? I said, this is what we planned. This is the result today. And what are we going to do next, and how we handle those risks, right? But when it's cascaded to the teams to execute those plans or those visions, then it starts to get very challenging, because actually the people doesn't have or can hold those visions, because they start to get too close to the problems, and then the bigger problems start to create, which is start to deviate from the main, if you may, main when I talk about the central line of strategy or activities, etc., etc. So the model here is an operating system. When you have an operating system, it means actually instead of having 4 different fragmented conversations about scale, predictability, systems, and innovation and transformation, all the systems start to report to each other, meaning that actually you start to have a full visibility at every level in the organization of what's going on, right? It makes sense? Okay, so let's go into the points that we have to discuss today. So today we're going to do a recap, so a kind of a conclusion, if you may, of the bigger picture, the whole operating systems. These are not 4 separate themes, as I mentioned. They are one joined up board operating system. And when they are disconnected, the company suffers in ways that look familiar and give you some hints of how a disconnected organization looks like. Sales grow faster than delivery. Yeah, forecasts look solid until the cash starts to tighten, and controls are discussed after the incidents, and transformations start to be late. So when you start to be reactive instead of responding, or start everywhere and everything at the same time at once, that's burning people out. So, and I've been in organizations where they call it that growing pains, but in reality, it's a disorganized chaos. So even if there's a theory that says the organization of chaos, meaning that actually even when there's chaos, things start to fall into the right place. But the growing pains is, I think, is a disguise to the disorganized chaos. So it's not only that is whatever is happening, but actually all at the same time is all disconnected. So none of this is unusual. So it's nothing to go into, oh my God, what's going on? It's not unusual. It's happened every time. But none of this is inevitable either, right? So that's why the operating system. That is where I come in as a board advisor. I build a rotating international advisory board around the milestones in front of the company. So you get the specialty capability you need in a fraction of the time that it takes to hire one executive, without a consulting overhead, without a talent locked in, and with the member swapped every 6 months as the project evolves. And this is something, a few things that we're going to discuss today, why this is important, and why more important today than particularly ever before, because in the past 2 years, the insolvency agency in the UK banned or suspended around 1,038 directors for an average of 8 years. So you see all that expertise, all that capabilities, all that experience, all those connections disappeared from the market, or well, not disappeared. They are not acting in boards for the next 8 years. And that creates a kind of a stretch everywhere. So it's very important to have a muscle, a capacity, a flexibility to address all these issues faster and better, right? And by the way, the insolvency agency is not stopping. It continues to audit boards right, left, and center, because they found out that actually efficiencies and practices that were seemingly common for many years are not acceptable anymore, right? So you have to be very careful if you are a non-executive director or a director of a company, and you will say, well, this is affecting the large corporations. But guess what? This is the same as the environment controls or the carbon emissions or the diversity or how governance is treated in different companies, or KYC, or like know your customer, or anti-money laundering is cascading to everybody. And now you have geopolitical issues like this incident or this situation in Middle East, where not only the petrol on the station is getting more expensive, that is a cascade effect on supply chain, in distribution, in business, in distribution hubs around the eastern countries and west countries, right? So don't think that actually because you are operating locally, it's not affecting you, it's affecting everybody. So if you're listening to this, listen to the principles that I'm mentioning, because it applies to everybody. And if that doesn't apply to you, in a way or how will start to be cascaded to you, even if you don't want to, right? Okay, so let's pull the whole model together in the simplest way possible. We have the model in front of us now, right? So let me double check that the screen is operating correctly here, because I don't see the model. Yep, it's up and visible for everybody. So let's go for 3 problems to consider, and I'm going to use statistics. And again, I use the statistics from the UK, but I'm 100% sure that any country in the world have similar statistics or different or similar studies. So use this as a guide, a rail, put it that way, or like a framework, and then you can translate it to your own country, your own geography, and see what you can match or not. But if you don't have something like this, at least you have a template now where you say, okay, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. So if this is happening somewhere, something similar, or in a way of capacity, or at least in business principles, I can apply in my own geography and country. So the first mistake is treating growth as a main story and everything else as a support work, right? So here's the evidence in the UK that says the boards, executive teams, and founders do not have that luxury anymore. And here there are some studies that support this. EY recorded 240 profit warnings from UK listed companies in 2025. Now, profit warnings means that actually companies are saying we are going to make, in other words, this amount of money. Now we are seeing that probably we are not going to make that money. It doesn't mean that they are losing, by the way. It means that profit warnings in terms of their forecast. But guess what happened with that? If a listed company has profit warnings, guess where it's going to go the squeeze? It's not going to go into, it's going to go to the supply chain. One of the first things they're going to do is going to go to the personnel, it's going to go to the market, increasing prices, etc., etc. So when the people say, well, that's it for the listed company, it doesn't affect me, it affects you, because here is one of the reasons why. This is another statistic that is quite interesting, and this is coming from the Office for National Statistics, that says that business investment fell 2.7% in Q4 2025. Yeah, this is from the Office for National Statistics in the UK. Q4 2025 was 3 months ago, and it fell. See, business investment. That tells you many firms are still struggling to convert ambition, their idea to growth and to go bigger and higher, into a dependable performance, right? Let's look at the second problem here. This is a mistake that is using resilience that sits somewhere else, yeah? this is an assumption. So resiliency sits somewhere else. It means actually they are not really looking into the things that they should be looking. I'll give you a very, very practical example, which is AI and cybersecurity. The Department of Science and Innovation and Technology says that 43% of businesses identified a cyber breach or attack in the last year, in 2025. And the National Cybersecurity Center also says that it handled 204 national significant cyber attacks in the year up to August last year, 2025. That means that boards, executive teams, and founders do not get to say this is an IT issue. Yeah, it's a board issue, really. It's a business issue because disruption hits customers, reporting, operation, trust, and capital all at once, right? And I say, well, cybersecurity. So I'm a small company. I don't have these problems. Now, look what happened in Spain in Q1 this year, 2026. A major service provider, I mean a major, it's not like a few couple of hundreds customers, millions of customers in Spain were affected when a cyber attack stole or allegedly stole, because the PR was very good, compensation started to fly all over the place very quickly. But why you should compensate for a cyber attack? It smells like a bit of guilt there, or trying to cover up very quickly, right? Anyway, IBANs, meaning the bank accounts where the direct debits were taken from people to pay the electricity bills, stolen. Emails, passwords, details like national security numbers or identification numbers or documentation numbers, etc., addresses. This is allegedly the attacks that suffered this major company and the things that were stolen from the databases. And you will say, well, these statistics are from the large corporations, so they had to be they have the obligation to take care of these kind of things. And you say, it doesn't affect me, these statistics. It affects you, because if you are a business, if you are a householder, or if you are an individual that your information have been stolen, it still affects you. So which is the way to prevent this? And this is like put two-factor authentication, put a reminder to change your password every 9 months, or sorry, every 90 days, or whatever is the case. So what I'm trying to illustrate here, that assuming the resilience sits somewhere else, is probably a big mistake that many companies are doing. And the third mistake they're doing is leaving reinvention until the old model, or the current model, that actually is old because had been designed some time ago, they start to fail, right? So the Office for National Statistics say that 15% of businesses planned to adopt AI within 3 months at the end of 2025, meaning that actually they are already implementing AI. And but look what EY is saying. EY is Ernst & Young, says that 78% of UK CEOs have already altered strategic investment plans in response to geopolitical or trade developments. Yeah, so the boards, investment teams, executive teams, and founders that wait for the total certainty are often just arriving too late. So if you don't alter your plans as you go along in the geopolitical, economic, technology, and social changes happen, you are sitting literally as a sitting duck that is going. The world is take over you, and you feel overwhelmed because you have to adapt. You have to start to get more relevant to whatever is going on. Right now, what I'm saying this is because many times, many times, you see this is ambiguity, uncertainty, what's going to happen, etc. But the point is not to be overwhelmed. The point is to, as a trip, if you know that you're going to A to B, you know when you have to refuel the car, when you have to stop for a rest, you know where you have to do a stop for a comfort break, like would be food or going to the toilet, etc. So worrying about or narrowing your worries about what we are going to face is too much. You need an operating system that tells you where going from A to B is going to bring you into these reposts or these breaks into the road so you can check that you're in the right direction, navigate at the right speed, and get into a destination as you planned, rather to being country roads and mixing things up and trying to do everything at once when you literally have to drive the plan. Right. So, in other words, imagine that the board operating system as a cockpit of an aircraft, right? So the scaling, which is a portion on the top, it gives you the lift. In terms of the portion on the right, which is predictability, gives you the instrument reading. So where we are going, what is the aircraft in terms of the radar, horizons, functions of the vehicle, etc., etc. And systems gives you the controls and keep the machine safe. And the edge, which is your reinvention, innovation, transformation, decides where you are flying next, right? So it's your next destination. So you can miss one, and then the journey starts to get rough and very fast. And as the example of a motorway, an airplane, a ship that travels the ocean, either way, you need all these three elements or these four elements to make sure that you're arriving to port saved and with the cargo ready to trade. So if that is true, what does a board, an executive team, and founders need to do in practice to make the full system work every single month? And as a board advisor, I'm going to mention three things. Number one, start every board cycle or executive team cycle or you as a founder cycle with a commercial truth, right? And we are starting a cycle right now, Q2. By the way, we have 9 months to the end of the year. So it's a good idea now to start to recap what happened in Q1 and how we're going to plan to do the next 3 quarters. For example, are your brand, your people, and your partnership help you scale cleanly, or they are hiding weak executions? Yes. If scale is messy, do not move on too quickly. Fix the blocks before you celebrate the noise. And sometimes we are celebrating noise. Yes, like this example that I mentioned early this week, a very, very good company, but 1.2 million not collected. So they are celebrating every quarter and say, yeah, revenues are excellent, but collection is not good. And you need that cash in bank, right? So don't celebrate noise. Make sure that you have the things that you have to do or you have to have in place before celebrations. Second thing I will advise is convert growth into trust. So ask whether revenue is repeatable, cash is visible, and assets are productive, and the forecast can survive challenges, right? So predictability is what turns efforts into credibility with investors, lenders, and the whole team itself, because encourage everybody to do that extra effort that sometimes is needed. And in third case, or the third advice or suggestion is keep resilience and reinvention into the same frame, right? Protect the important services, tighten material controls, and then use that stability to make sharper strategic moves. The point is not to choose between safely and change. The point is to build enough discipline that the company does both very well. So now here's the last challenge of this week. If the business needs different kinds of judgment at different milestones, why are so many companies still trying to solve the entire journey with a single executive hire or a static board, right? And this is a problem that is commonly happening, and particularly based on this insolvency agency in the UK that actually are banning or suspending directors for 8 years in average. You have the same teams. You're looking for the same golden standard for executive with experience, the track record, etc., etc. And you spend hundreds of thousands sometimes trying to get this done, or with the board that have been sitting there for the last 11 years, 12 years. So how things are changing today with things that happen in the middle, right? The pandemic, now this crisis that we have now, then we have another crisis in the middle with the crash of certain things. So how the same board, you say, well, we did it very well, by the way, yeah. But now the people are aging, they're getting tired, they are getting scared sometimes because I say, look around, they are banning my colleagues, my friends. right? So they're, instead of going into a more expanding, accelerating process, they are getting into the more compliance and governance tightening, looking and checking every dot, every T, and every cross, just to make sure that they are not banned or suspended, right? So instead of going into um, innovation and transformation, they're going into kind of a stagnation. Just stay here, be safe, right? Which is very good. But the business is suffering because actually save today doesn't mean that you might have two arguments. You may say, oh, we are going to survive this again, right? But at the same time, the people that actually are going around these safe places, or the average media, they are going to, the ones that are going to reap the biggest rewards in 2, 3, 4, 5 years times. So what do you gain working with me? In terms of outcomes, the model produces the operating model board is useful in the real world. It helps the company scale with greater discipline, forecast with greater trust, and withstand shocks with greater confidence, and adapt with a greater speed. That is what the advisory board operating system is for. In terms of differentiators, my approach is to build a rotating international advisory board around the company's next milestones. That means the capability follows the work. You get the specialist mix you need in a fraction of the time it takes to hire one executive, without a big consulting overhead and without locking the business into a board shape that no longer fits 6 months later, and avoid dilutions, right? Because you don't have to pay in shares or benefits or whatever is the case. And in terms of risk reduction, this reduces risk because the biggest board failures usually stem from delays, mismatch, and false confidence, right? So wrong hires, low hires, static boards, as I mentioned, generic advice. This model reduces those traps. Members can change as the project evolves, challenges stays close to the milestones, and the board becomes a working system, not a ceremonial structure that you have to comply with. Now, one action you can take today and is doable in 30 minutes or less. Take the 4 headlines from this week: scale, predictability, systems, and edge, and score your boards, your teams, you as a founder from 1 to 5 on each of them on the next 20 minutes. And then write one missing capability besides the lowest scores. And then you will start to see where these bottlenecks that I mentioned earlier, where this stagnation is happening, and the things that you can start to develop ideas how to fix this. Now, if you are a UK chair, non-executive, a founder, executive team, and you want an international advisory board built around the milestones in front of your company, your challenges, your organization, uh, so you can get the right specialist capability faster than hiring one executive, without a consulting overhead, without a talent locked in, and with the members rotating as the project evolves. Book a 30-minute call with me so I can understand exactly where you're standing, what is going on, and how I can I can help you to put this full board operating system to work for you in your business. So let's pause here for today and reconvene next week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a great Friday, and goodbye.